All right. Hello and welcome to this episode of the show where we're going to talk about resistance. And I think it's just probably one of the most important topics that I could discuss. So I'm probably going to have a multiple series on this when it comes to resistance and why it's so important to address in our journey. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Matt Cotty, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker and the creator of the AAA Response. And if you're looking for help and resources when it comes to taking your life back from OCD and anxiety, please check out the links in the notes below. And this have a few things that you can start with right away, as well as you can head over to Restored Minds, and you can also complete an application for me and my team to review and reach back out to you. So anyways, and if you could also please help the show out by liking and subscribing. We would really appreciate it, and even going as far to leaving us a review on iTunes, as it helps so much. So thank you so much if you're willing to do that. So let's dive into resistance. So there's a lot of like famous phrases and stuff, and I think we know them, right? Like, you may have heard them and you might intellectually know them, but there's a difference between intellectually knowing something and actually applying it, right? And the knowledge that comes with applying something, right? And you can utilize the difference of, hey, it's one thing to know the idea of, let's say, being married or having a child. And you can understand in your mind that that exists and that's possible and all that stuff. And then when you actually are in the process, it's two very different things. I was just talking with someone the other day that said, I was the best parent in the world before I had kids, because and I thought it was funny because it was just like, you can know something intellectually or what it means to parent a child, and then there's the experience of it. It's like where you get tested and you have to deal with just things you've never dealt with before, and so the uncertainty with it and all that stuff. Point is when it comes to resistance, I think it's the thing that we all intellectually understand, like, oh yeah, don't resist, right? Accept and all this stuff. But I really do believe that it's one of the things that very few people actually know how to do from an application standpoint. So I want to talk about that, right? Because, there's the famous phrase, right? What you resist persists. And I may be misquoting right here, but I want to say, I'm pretty sure it was Carl Rogers who said that. Or it might have been Young. I'm not sure. Maybe they both did. But this idea of, if you're stuck, and if you find yourself stuck, and if you've been stuck for a while, especially if you find yourself like, look, I just keep like falling back into these same patterns, and I'm getting caught in this loop, right? Or, I'm getting in these different episodes. Instead of assuming that you understand the problem, right? And this, because I think one of the most dangerous assumptions that we make is that we really understand what the problem is and what we need to solve when it comes to OCD and anxiety. And because we assume that, then we try to solve the wrong thing, right? So if you try to solve the content of your fear, whether it's, I'm afraid of flying, or so you try to logic out, why flying's safe, or if you try to, if you're trying to solve your feelings, so you're trying to, again, analyze your feelings and all this stuff. There's just a fundamental truth to this process, where the more you resist what is, the longer you're going to stay stuck. It's just what it is. Your resistance is the very thing that causes you to engage in compulsions. And instead of resisting and then trying to stop compulsions, it's much easier to really practice this idea of letting go of your resistance. Now, and again, in my TBC program, I really anchor into the idea of the hero's journey. And I talk a lot about the hero's journey and how, again, if you're on this journey, you are on a hero's journey. There's a reason for this journey. It will serve a purpose in the grand scheme of things. And one of the things, though, that happens on the hero's journey is there's always a resistance to the journey itself. And it's not until the hero fully embraces the journey that it really can begin. So, I was watching the movie The Hobbit yesterday, or I'm sorry, not yesterday, the day before that, on Saturday. And, Bilbo Baggins, right? When he gets essentially called into this adventure, right? All these, the dwarfs show up at his house, and Gandalf is there, and they, hey, look, we want you to come with us. And initially he rejects the journey. He's like, no, not doing that. He resists the journey. When you're resisting, that's where you are, right? And then it wasn't until he fully really embraced the journey and he went and met them and said, hey, like, this is what is, and this is, I'm going on this completely. That act was, again, what allowed the journey to unfold, right? For many of us, anxiety shows up, intrusive thoughts show up, panic attack happens. There's this onset that happens very quickly. And actually, what keeps us in this loop much longer than we really need to be, transparently, and I even shouldn't even say I need to be, is like what keeps us in this loop a long time often is our resistance to what we're experiencing. Whether that is this flood of intrusive thoughts, whether that is the anxiety, and however that's manifesting for you, your resistance of where you are on the journey, right, is what the main problem is. This is why in the book Letting Go, Dr. Hawkins, who's brilliant in my opinion, is he said in the letting go process, the first thing you need to let go of is your resistance to the feelings before you can let go of the feelings. And if you find yourself, because again, if we have a belief that feelings are bad, if we have a belief that having intrusive thoughts is bad, then we're going to resist them. And if we resist them, we're going to engage in compulsions. If we engage in compulsions or safety behaviors, that's what's going to keep the loop going. And so in order for you to really take back control of your life, one of the number one things you're going to need to let go of one of the number one things you're going to need to do is let go of your resistance. And one of the things that you can do right away is letting go your resistance to where you are on the journey. For many of us, I've seen, countless, people that I've spoken to where they're frustrated about where they are. Right. And I don't know who quoted this, right? I'm going to not attribute a name because you guys can throw it in the comments. It's a quick Google search, but the quote is just coming to me. But it's only when you accept it's only when you accept things or as yourself exactly as you are, then you can begin to change. Right. And I'm paraphrasing the quote to some degree. But the point of this message is quite simple. It's like, you have to be willing to look at yourself and say, hey, this is what is. This is what it is right now. If you've been struggling with agoraphobia and you've been stuck in your house for a year, instead of being angry about that, it's like, this is what is right now. And again, accepting it in a non-judgmental way to the best of your ability. It's like, this is the reality. Because if you're unwilling to accept that this really is the reality, and if you are really struggling with OCD and anxiety, or if you're really struggling with your mental health or whatever it is, if you don't accept that as the reality, you're going to displace the blame externally, and then you're going to attempt to solve or blame that. Whereas, a big turning point on my own journey was I had to look at myself and say, hey, Matt, you're engaging in a bunch of compulsions all day. And this loop is spinning, and you're spending hours each day in this loop. And because of that, though, your relationships have been damaged. You're not doing things you want to do. You're struggling at work, right? Your life is becoming smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And I had to accept that that's what it is. That's what was going on at that moment. But when I did that, I was able to start taking myself in a new direction. See, if I resist that idea and I come up with all the reasons why this is okay or why this is happening and it's all outside of me, I'm never going to look at myself as actually the thing that needs to change. Right? If you're really willing to let go of your resistance to this journey, to this experience that you're having, that will be the turning point in which you can fully accept what is and then actually begin to change. And it's the courage to let go of that resistance that starts the transformation process. And that's something that only you can do. And so the first thing that we need to do is letting go of the resistance to what is currently happening in your life, this moment right now. If you're feeling anxiety all day and you're frustrated about that, you need to let go of that resistance because it's like, that's what's actually happening. If you are, again, if your relationship is on the fritz right now because your significant other is engaged, is frustrated with you because you're engaging compulsions all day, you have to accept that that's what's really going on right now. Because if you try to change them, it's just going to make the relationship worse, right? If you're not in a job that you want because your anxiety is you spend, most of your hours, wrestling with these intrusive thoughts or anxious feelings, instead of getting mad that you're not at that job right now, you have to be able to accept, hey, this is the reason that that's actually going on right now. This thing that I'm dealing with right now, this obstacle in my life right now, OCD, anxiety, psychological stress, whatever you want to call it, is here. And until you really are willing to accept that as it is, right? And not deny it and be like, I'm just going to pretend to be happy or this. It's like, no, I have to accept like this is really impacting my life. And a lot of times we're resistant to the idea of acknowledging that because it means that, hey, I have an issue I really need to address. And a lot of times it's like, I'd rather not admit that. So we resist admitting it. Our ability to drop resistance is the pinnacle, the turning points is literally the turning point in the journey. So letting go of that resistance internally to this journey that you're on, I think is a huge first step. And that's why I wanted to make an episode just about that today. And I know it's a very powerful first step, but when you do that, that's when you actually have the ability to change. And so it's the greatest step that we can learn to take is our ability to look at where we are, and instead of resisting it and fighting it and being like, hey, this is what is, I'm going to stop resisting that. And we think that by resisting it, we're giving in, but actually by letting go of resisting it, we're actually opening up for transformation to take place. It doesn't mean that we're succumbed to this and that we're stuck here now. The paradox is resistance is what's keeping us stuck. And I hope I'm communicating this effectively because once you understand this, it can really change the game for you. So hope this was helpful. And again, the central message of today or this week, again, letting go of resisting where you are in your journey, embracing where you are, accepting where you are, and then deciding that right now I have the ability to change and move forward. And, really getting the guidance and direction you need is going to expedite that process. So, with all that said, if you found this helpful, again, please help us out by liking and subscribing, and even leaving a review on iTunes. And also please check out the links in the notes as we have resources for you there, and visit us at restoredminds.com if you're looking for additional support on this journey. So thank you guys. Wish you guys a wonderful day and a wonderful week. And I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Hey there, hope you enjoyed that recent video. We really would appreciate your support real quick if you could like and subscribe to our channel. And if you're looking for help with OCD and anxiety, please check out the links below or visit restoredminds.com, as we'd be happy to help you on your journey.